Welcome back. I'm very excited about today's episode.
Enough for 3 people?
Yes, it will be about threesomes, but it is something we've chatted about for quite some time about doing an episode on this. We just haven't made it till today. So I'm very excited. And I was also thinking, wow, it's been almost a year and a half since we started doing this podcast. And I have to say, I really love spending this time with you, diving in, talking, exploring, sometimes surprising each other, which is the best. And I think today is going to be one of those where we just bring up all kinds of fun stuff around, well, what is a threesome, the good and the bad of it, some suggestions for all of you how to get started. And then on the explicit side, we'll dive into a lot of very juicy stories from perhaps our own lives and the lives of clients and friends, just to give a spectrum of scenarios of what does it actually look like.
And really how to be able to navigate it in a way that would either serve your relationship or serve yourself, depending if you are the couple or if you're a single. Or anyways, we'll talk about the compositions in which threesomes come.
Oh, well, what is a threesome?
Well, just in general, and by the word threesome, means that there are some bodies that are 3.
Yeah, so there's 3 people involved in a sensual or sexual experience.
Yes, and that can come in all kinds of different combinations. It could be 3 guys, 3 women, 3 whatever you identify as. It could be 2 of one sex and 1 of the other, or
all kinds
of combinations there. Plus, but it's not also to just. It's not just in terms of what types of bodies are there. There's definitely something to be understood about how people are interacting as well.
I think what happens a lot of times is when you add that third element, there's an additional amount of unknown and things that you're not sure what and where and how. And so I feel like that adds to the erotic novelty, that kind of excitement of, ooh, what's going to happen with this? And so I think that's part of the allure to the threesomes. Now, I was curious, why do people want to explore them?
That's a good question. I mean, one of the things when I'm talking to guys, and this isn't even just clients, I just remember being younger and sort of maybe it started, you can ask me later when my first sort of heard about threesomes was, but typically talking to a guy, okay, well, what's one of your fantasies? And almost always the threesome thing comes up. And in that scenario, I always get the feeling that what's being desired there is, I don't want to call it, well, maybe you could just call it egotistical, but more of I get to get pleasure from 2 women at the same time.
Okay.
And so this is one of the drivers of being able to be on the giving or receiving side of 2 people as opposed to just 1.
I have to say, I think at least my friends, like I'm thinking back to high school and university, and I think my friends, they were more romantic. They weren't really like, ooh, let's do a threesome and a party. I think that they would go along with their boyfriend's ask, but we never talked about threesomes, at least at that age, as something we were curious about. We were more looking for like, who's the person I get to be in love with?
When I hear a woman talking about a threesome, it's typically after she's had lots of experiences, and then finally, maybe after watching some porn or something like that, she's like, I wonder what it would be like to actually get taken by 2 guys.
2 guys,
and specifically taken too, where the guys are just sort of having their way with her, and so she's already established a certain level of confidence in herself. Whereas when I hear guys talking about it, a lot of times it's more of they're starting off like, oh, just more is better. Let's go for it.
Yes. And then I have friends on both sides where they are exploring more their bisexual tendencies.
Yes.
And they happen to be in a hetero sexual relationship. And so the threesome is a way for them to safely see if their bisexuality is just a fantasy or if it's actually something genuine and real.
Or maybe they know that they have that, but then because they've entered into a partnership, they want to navigate, well, how can I still honor that side of myself and not have this be something that, my partner has to be left out of?
Yes, and this can be in any combo, so it's not just like a man with a woman who's curious about a woman. It could also be two women together, and one of those women is curious about a man. So,
Yep.
or two, a gay couple, but one of them's like, I don't know, I think I might kind of want to try the other. And so there's all kinds of reasons why people would want to explore that. And I just want to start right here naming something really important. At the foundation of this curiosity is erotic innocence. I want to start there because I think a lot of the conversations around threesomes, they're kinked out, or they come from porn, or they come from this place where we're like, ooh, they're bad, or it's not good for a relationship, or it has this taboo sense. But I do feel that, as you said, in the arc of a human's life, there might be a moment of erotic fantasy. Maybe you never act on it, but an erotic fantasy that involves multiple people.
Well, I like that you mentioned this piece about erotic innocence, because a lot of times when I hear about threesomes, they have a tendency to be a bit manufactured in the sense of there's a couple that's wanting to have this experience, or there's a single person that would like to have this experience with a couple. And the times that I've heard threesomes be the most organic are actually when there's just sort of three people, maybe they're friends for a long time or acquaintances, and just there was something in the mood that evening, and then people started touching, it felt good, and then it just sort of snowballed or fireballed into this erotic experience.
Yeah.
And it's always there that it has more of this sort of erotic innocence, in the sense of, this feels good, I'm going with this feeling, and then let that feeling
Lead the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have its inertial effect.
Tell us a little bit about cultural biases around threesomes, because there's definitely the sector that's completely pro,
Yeah.
and there's a sector that's completely like, whoa, keep that away from me.
Well, I mean, the standard is that, a guy has a threesome, he's a stud. Woman has a threesome, she's a whore or a slut or a pervert, whatever you want to say. And
Hey,
and then there's those who really like having those labels assigned to them for that, and those who do not. Now, there's also the idea that somehow there's something that's either taboo about it, because then therefore it's just wrong and
you're breaking
shouldn't be done.
the unit.
And also to this idea that it can't be something that either has love or romance involved in it, because it is something that's very just lusty and rather pornographic. Those are the big cultural taboos that at least popped to my mind first.
Can you define the difference between a threesome experience and living in a polyamorous experience?
So you could have a polyamorous experience or relationship where the three of you are never actually having sex together at the same time. You can have threesomes inside of a polyamorous relationship, where then maybe you come together and have sex. Maybe the three of you are living or sleeping in a bed together. Maybe you're sharing a house, maybe you're not sharing a house. But the polyamorous idea is more of that there is this ongoing relationship that is also involving love.
Like building a life together.
Possibly, to some extent, at least building a relationship
yeah.
that is centered around love. Because you could also have a relationship that involves another person who is just there for sex, that you regularly are having sex, the three of you, but there's not this emotional connection there. A threesome, just by its standard definition, is just three bodies together in a moment. And again, though, that even can get a little bit defined differently, because, and these are things to think about really when you're thinking about having a threesome, is, well, are you wanting to actually just sit back and watch two other people that are there? Would that be a threesome to some extent?
I think something hot for some people.
Some people want to be the one being watched.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that can play into it, and the observer never actually partakes.
Yes.
But it would be still considered lightly as a threesome, because there's three people involved with a sexual activity.
Typically, they're partaking, at least in the sense that it's creating some sort of arousal in them. There are other, we can get into maybe in the other part of this where maybe threesomes can go off, where you're actually sort of reenacting an experience that didn't go very well. which then either you're recreating it and you're just sort of acquiescing to it happening again, and it sort of continues to happen a lot. Those are people who end up a lot of times in threesomes and they're like, I never actually really want this. And at one point they're like, okay, no more.
Yeah.
Or others who enjoy the reenacting and then sitting in that place of power to actually feel that there's a shift now, because maybe before they had not been in a place of power and they were excluded, but now they're the ones observing and even maybe directing a bit. So you could have that type of threesome as well, where you're not just observing, but you're directing.
So we work a lot. We help clients. There's a whole industry of professionals who support people to explore and heal and expand in this arena of intimacy, sex, relationship. Why do you think that in some parts of the world, threesomes are actually part of a prescription, like a recommendation, and not in other parts of the world? So I'm just curious what that is.
I think a lot of it has to do that there is fads, just like with everything. There's fads.
So it's the newest solution at the moment.
It's the kind of newest solution that, hey,
if you're bored
with your relationship, which I definitely would say is probably one of the worst reasons to go ahead and jump into a threesome, because boredom with your relationship typically means we're looking for a solution.
Yeah.
And if you're outsourcing a solution, that solution, especially when it's a threesome, starts to become a dependency. And if you're already geared towards really pair bonding in a dyadic sense with one other person, then that outsource quickly becomes then the primary source. Meaning that then the relationship is kind of on its outs.
And that gives it the push. That even without a therapist or a coach involved, some people come up with that idea themselves. Like, our relationship's now in a boring phase sexually. Why don't we just think of bringing someone else in just to see what happens?
That's probably how it happened. I mean, I see a lot of sex coaches out there that did that themselves, ended their relationship, ended up breaking up, and then they think for some reason it's a good reason to give that advice to others.
Well, then are threesomes healthy, and are they common?
So that's actually, so I'm not going to say that they're always healthy. I also won't say that they're always unhealthy.
That's true of any sexual experience.
Exactly. But if you are asking, though, how could they potentially be a healthy solution, is when I feel that, at least in my own life, the times that they've been healthy experiences have been when there is a desire to, it's like things are so good inside the relationship. It's like, hey, let's either have an adventure together, then that adventure is, let's see how much pleasure we can actually have someone else experience. What would it be like to see that person get to experience someone that's as amazing as my partner is, or vice versa? Or that it's just so good, let's bring them into this experience. Or it's so good, let's just see, by bringing someone else in, it could actually even be even better. I want to see different angles of my partner's arousal in that experience. Maybe I actually would like to team up with someone else and bring my partner pleasure and just see what happens. And so in those instances, and I would say a lot of times the test of a good, quote unquote, good threesome, meaning that it actually served the relationship, even served the third person, we can talk about that as well, is that after you actually want to have more sex with your partner, you want to...
That's a good indicator, a green
focused
flag.
on them. That would be definitely a green flag.
Yeah.
Because...
bringing you closer, making it hotter, allowing like the erotic charge of that experience to really nourish the connection.
Precisely.
Now, if you're the person who's the single coming into the dyad, sometimes it's it's three single people, by the way. It's not always like this, but a lot of times it's a partnered pair. And for the single person, what's the healthy experience of that?
Well, a lot of times a third person will come in because they will, not that it's always this way, but typically when I see a woman that's come and told me about her experience in a threesome or why she's pursuing one, she's not maybe ready to have a relationship. And so she is, however, wanting to maybe at some point have one, but just loves a good, healthy relationship. And so she wants to feel the healthiness of that relationship. And so by coming into the threesome and really like sitting with, stewing in, being a part of the love that's shared between a couple, walking away and going, I feel like I have a good imprint of what a good relationship can be, of that felt state of the love that exists between others.
Yeah, that's what I've also witnessed a lot. And again, with friends and with clients, where the solo person, they're in a phase where they really don't want a relationship. They would like to be sexual, and there is something really nourishing about feeling love with, like, between two people. And it's safe because they don't have to worry about them. They're already good. So it's a safe way to have interaction and be playful and not have to have like a bit of the emotional burden of caretaking someone after they can leave. Bye, you guys can handle whatever just happened. See you later. So there can be a little bit of, I think we were going to talk about the attachment styles, but the avoidant type kind of coming in and having their fun and then leaving and being really happy with that.
Yes. Well, and so that, I've seen, because I'll also give a sort of kind of standard heterosexual example after this, but a heterosexual example of like a guy coming in, having the ability to not feel competition with the other male, that you're actually there as a team, and then you're getting to
Is it like a tag team, pass the baton kind of thing?
Or it's more of a six-legged race. they're all holding two batons. I don't know how that would work in terms of the metaphor for track and field, but the experience though of entering into non-competition, almost like teamship with the other male, and then just the immense amount of beauty of seeing a woman just thoroughly gone into pleasure, almost into this animalistic state where they're just, I don't know how to say, like a fat kid and cake, like just eating everything, just enjoying everything there, and that I've seen. Then maybe it's like, okay, so the guy's not going to necessarily interact again, but just wow, I got to do that, and so it's something that just gets this really good feel. They
I'm
feel
sure
they've
it's
also provided a ton of pleasure.
Plenty of men have had a threesome when they watch porn and they watch a couple have sex. They're having the threesome because they're sexually activating themselves.
Well, and there's
observing.
There's a lot of men that really love to give pleasure, and so if you then have two men that really love to give pleasure, and then they get to team up and give even more pleasure, that can be something that's extremely satisfying.
Yes.
Guess there'll be some stories on the other side of this
the non-heterosexual example.
Well, this is then where a person maybe hasn't experimented with someone of the same sex, for instance, and then they can have a light introduction to that. Yeah. And for whatever reason, their psyche can handle that a little bit better than if they're just isolated one-on-one with the other person.
It doesn't have the same weight and meaning because they can go back to their orientation that they prefer and then expand out.
Precisely. Yeah. And so that would be another good instance of where that happens. But you know what? Frankly, whether you're the couple, whether you're the single, if you go through the experience and you're like, this is something that I wanted. Some people want to go into the experience as the unicorn and just be used for pleasure. And then if that's what their intention is, then they get
their pleasure.
Or the other way around. And I state the use for pleasure because a lot of times you'll hear unicorns saying, hey, couples are trying to use me for it. And then they feel used and then sort of discarded. They don't get to have any integration, no conversation after.
I have a unicorn story for the other side. Not me as a unicorn, but a unicorn that I got to speak with who was regularly dating a couple that I knew.
So the general answer would be, if you understand your intention going into it, and your intention actually turns out to be true, because a lot of times fantasy isn't the same as reality.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one. That's where things can really go downhill fast, where you're like confronted with reality, and it's very interesting.
So if the reality matches up with what you either fantasized and wanted, or it matches up with what you wanted, which might not have been the fantasy, but you're able to stay centered in yourself and also attuned to others, then in general, the experience will go well.
I think a really good place to start, if you're curious, is through journaling. Or you could just have a fantasy, but it's actually helpful to journal. I know that I myself did that in a way to actually heal. I had aversion to threesomes. I was really, I don't know why, but I was really triggered by the idea of someone coming into my space. And so by journaling, I discovered actually it wasn't the story that mattered at all. It was the elements in the story that were really important for me that would have made it a yes.
Yeah.
So journaling can help us explore. If you're kind of a no and you're not sure, but you're curious, then journaling can help you discover, well, what would make this a yes? And then you're in charge of communicating that and designing an experience that has the yes for yourself. If you're already a yes, but you've had a few disasters, which can happen, then journaling can help you learn, like,
what made it a disaster?
What went wrong and where, and what could have been handled beforehand that would have smoothed things out and made that actually great for everybody.
What are some of the things, before we switch over to the other side, that could be factors for a person who is journaling? Because a lot of times maybe you just write the story out, but then you sort of get locked into it, especially if it's something that didn't go well, you sort of replay the negative part.
Well, one is be in touch with what you're feeling, both emotionally but also sensually. Because what I notice sometimes when things are triggering to me, I will still have an arousal response in my body. And that can be something that makes me angry. Because I'm like, I don't want to be turned on by this. I don't like this thing.
This is a huge one that I think really gets underestimated, is the difference between the, what you could say almost is the affect, meaning that there is just blood flow that's happening. There are certain hormones and blood flow that's going on, lubrication that's happening, and then the feeling of it, which is when you start to recognize it's there, and then the emotion, which is the whole emotional story that and history of these things that have happened beforehand, where you're imagining it might go forwards. And right at that feeling place, it can be, if I don't want this, but I'm feeling it, then it's not good. And in fact, it can almost create this sense of disgust versus the other way around.
It can be intense. So there are a lot of practices, physical practices, self-love practices that one could do with that. And in one, I mean, our foundational pieces at ELU will really help, because you're going to explore your erotic mind. You're going to explore connecting your heart and your genitals. You're going to explore how to breathe. You're going to explore how to soothe yourself. Like, these are all elements, information that's extremely valuable when you're in this territory. So I want to define the territory. You know, we have that green zone, which is lush and yummy and safe. This is where we like to play. And this is where you want to spend the majority of your time, because it's really healthy and good for you. Then we have the amber zone, which is the yellow light in the traffic light. But I actually prefer to refer to the zone of golden opportunity, because it's not comfortable. But handled correctly, you can actually learn and grow and actually expand the green zone by stepping lightly into that golden. It
can be either seen as edgy or maybe curious.
Yes. And then there's the red zone, which is no-go, because that's when it's full-blown trigger, shutdown or reaction. And that only causes a lot of distress in the body, mind, and spirit.
Which is why if the relationship's already pretty much in the red zone, to then try and use this to get to the green zone is a little bit counterintuitive.
We want all of you to really grow your bedroom IQ, and part of that is this maturity process of approaching sexuality with the respect that it deserves, which is your own self-respect, and then the respect of other, and then the respect of the power of the erotic. It's so intense, it's so enlivening, but it also can be a bit shocking. So the foundational videos that are for everybody, they're free. You just need an email address and you have access to them. Or if you're already part of our university and you haven't done those, go and do that. They're so crucial, because then in the journaling process, if you start to feel a little bit alarmed, you will know how to self-soothe. Super important to interrupt, pause, soothe yourself, and then come back to the activity. Or maybe you're self-pleasuring, and you start to feel a little uncomfortable, well, then you could pause. You could take a nice deep breath. You could connect your heart again back into with your genitals and be with yourself and just notice, okay, can that arousal just nourish my system, but I don't make up a story about this? So there's a lot of really cool ways that you can use our foundational pieces. Also, your erotic mind quiz is so good. Discovering how your erotic mind actually predominantly functions. We believe that we have access to all of the types, but we do have one that we prefer. And understanding that in this exploration of, do I want a threesome, or it went bad, how do I make it better, or I've never had one, I'm curious, but I'm not sure what to do. All of that exploration is so healthy. That's part of developing your erotic innocence. It's part of fueling yourself, and you don't have to do anything about it. We are all sexual beings, not sexual doings. So we get to just be with ourselves, be with our thoughts, our emotions, our turn-ons, and enjoy them and learn how to actually handle turn-on. I think one thing about threesomes is, well, maybe you can speak to it, but it does kind of, you have to calibrate your turn-on. It's sometimes a lot of stimulation to
Well, there's
receive.
definitely something to say about, and again, one of the foundational videos is understanding anatomy as a system of pleasure. And people already can struggle with the body mechanics and how do they work with their anatomy and understanding their anatomy just when they're with themselves, let alone with another person, let alone with a third person now. And then all of a sudden, now how does that sort of become a synergy between the three, and just have more factors to deal with, and that can lead to overwhelm, either that it ends way too soon or that it goes too long, or you get overstimulated and you numb out. One of the things that you'd mentioned about the part on the mental arousal piece that I think is interesting is that, and this is something that as you start to journal, is maybe look at, well, is the threesome actually the thing that you want, or is it just a manifestation of something that you actually are craving that then you don't necessarily even have the threesome for? So it could be the sense of just being overpowered by two people. So what you actually are interested in something more like power play, or is it the taboo of it, or go to jiu-jitsu. No, do not go to jiu-jitsu class to go ahead and take care of your threesome thing. That is, people are not consenting to that on the mat. I think you mentioned having some
It happened to me as well.
in the martial arts class where the person was definitely trying to take advantage of the fact that they were wrestling a female. And no, don't do that. Unless it's consensual, but then I think it's more about impact play. So without the impact. Another
place to explore threesomes is sometimes if you are at a play party or a dungeon or a conference where they have all of these things going on, you could just be an observer on the outside of a threesome dynamic and watch, and hopefully what you're witnessing is a healthy version of it, and then you could even talk to the individuals afterward and ask, what was that like, what came up for you? It's really actually those environments, I find the non-conventional ones, people are much more willing to openly discuss things and negotiate scenes and have experiences that I think could be very, at least thought-provoking, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up a whole other part of why people go into threesomes. If they're having a new experience, then typically they also would like to, after the threesome, to have a conversation about it. What was that like? Some other people, and that might be more on a standard anxious person who's like, okay, what's going on here? Is there still emotions going on?
Like, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We don't need to talk about it. I had the experience, got the hat, rode the ride. But others, though, actually are like, no, more important than the ride is what happened during it. What was that like for you? What was that like for me? And it's, people that like to sit around and have coffee and talk about a shared hobby, would also then probably like to go ahead and speak about the type of threesome that they had.
That's awesome. Well, let's pop to the explicit side, and I want to get into, on that side, actually what makes for a good beginning, middle, and end. I really want to share some stories, some good and bad, just so we have an understanding of some interesting dynamics that can happen.
I think we can also dive a little bit more into that process of the journaling and what you would actually do after the journaling to then integrate it before actually having a threesome, and then during the threesome, and then the after.
Cool. Well, please pop over to elu.com, embodiedloveuniversity.com, if you want those foundational videos. If you're already there and you've missed them, pop in and check those out.
To join us for the complete and explicit version of the podcast, simply upgrade your membership and gain instant access.